الله
Because
الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. So we left off last time with the narration. We didn't go into it because it had too many parts to it, but we'll continue that now. So the last narration we read was by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "The one who is careless of his prayers will be deprived of my intercession, and will not be able to reach me at the pool of Kawthar. And by Allah, my intercession will also not reach the one who consumes intoxicants, and he will not be able to reach me at the pool of Kawthar." So we said that this sin prohibits one to reach Rasulullah on the day of judgment. So this enough should be a deterrent, to not consume intoxicants. So the narration we left off is that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that the narration says that he cursed 10 types of people in connection with wine, or these 10 type of people are cursed. The first one is one who plants the sapling with the intention of producing wine, because their intention is to make intoxicants. We see like Allah has given us something halal. He's given us grapes. We can eat them and use them in halal way, or we can use them for haram and make wine. So the intention with this is to plant them, not to eat them, but to make wine out of them. The next one is one who cultivates the saplings so that wine may be manufactured. They take care of that thing in order to grow the grapes to make wine. The next one is the one who crushes the grapes to make wine. Then the one who drinks the wine, one who serves the wine, one who transports the wine. So someone may say, "Oh, I don't drink, but I just drive the truck. The truck brings the wine from point A to point B. I don't do anything. I don't even touch it." But still, they are aiding in this cause of intoxicants. Or the one who serves the wine says, "Oh, I don't do anything. I don't drink it. I just serve it." And the people who drink it, they're also think it's permissible. So I just serve the wine. And he says, one who takes delivery from the supplier, one who sells wine, one who buys it, one who uses the income that is earned by making or selling wine. So all of these things are haram. All of these who do any of these actions fall under this category of being cursed by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So it's more than just drinking. Anything that aids in the cause of drinking is also haram and falls under the category of being cursed. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam said that one who is addicted to wine will meet the Lord on the appointed day like an idol worshiper. So it is the same state of being as a person who drinks, then same as a person who worships idols. So it shows the severity of this sin. Another narration says, on the day of meeting the Lord, the drunkard will be counted among the disbelievers. So this sin has taken him out of faith. Imam Bakr alayhi salam said that disobedience to the order of Allah is mostly due to drinking alcohol. The alcoholic abandons his salat. He even would commit incest under the influence of alcohol, because he says he loses all of his senses, because when they are drinking, they're not thinking clearly. So they are capable of doing a lot of things they normally wouldn't do. Even maybe they look at their own children with lust, as we see that this narration mentions this, that they are not thinking clearly and they would even do this horrendous act because alcohol has numbed their conscious and they're not thinking clearly at all. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam said, certainly even if a person swallows only a mouthful of wine, at that very moment, the angels, the prophets, the righteous believers send their curses on him. So if a person knows this narration, see, the problem is people have downplayed this sin and society has made it normal. But if they knew the narrations about this sin, they would stay far away from it because they say, oh, it's no big deal. I'm having some fun with my friends and I'm going out and I'm going to take some drinks and no, not a big deal. I won't drink too much. Maybe I sober up and I can make a fajr salat, for example. Shaitan is whispering to them and making the deed seem fair seeming to them, as mentioned in Quran. But we see here that Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says, even they take one mouthful of wine, angels, prophets, and the righteous believers send their lana on this person. So it's a big deal. It's not something small. But in order for a person to refrain from these sins, they need to be aware of the sin. They need to know narrations about the sin, because if they're ignorant of the sin, they'll just look at society. The problem is we need to shape our worldview according to Quran and Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. And we have to know these things before we let the world shape our worldview, or society should shape our worldview. Because if we go off of society, we say, oh, not a big deal. Everyone is doing this. Society accepts it. They're not rejecting, or they're not doing nahi anil munkar, or keeping people away from wrong. They are okay with it. So in their mind, they say, it's not a big deal. I'm okay with it. So when they hear the narrations, they've already got in their mind that it's okay. So they push the narrations aside. The same thing with many other things in society that they're trying to make normal that weren't normal maybe 50 years ago. Now those things are normal in society. Society accepts them, promotes them, makes days for them, march, all sort of things, for these other haram actions as well. And if they are not familiar with the narrations about that subject, then their world will be shaped and they'll say, okay, society accepts it, it's okay. So whenever they hear anything else, their mind is already made that this thing is okay. So we have to take time and learn these things and make sure our children learn narrations of Ahlul Bayt. As Imam Sadiq alayhi salam said, take care and teaching your children narrations of Ahlul Bayt before the corrupted people move forward in corrupting them, because they are always pushing agendas on people, trying to shape their mind to think that thing is okay, either subconsciously or either directly, doing it. So we have to be very careful that we notice the severity of these things, even if the rest of the world doesn't. It doesn't matter. As long as we are in charge of our own soul, we have to save ourselves and our families. As Allah said, to save yourself and your family from the fire that is made from men and stones. So we need to take care of ourselves. And when we know these narrations, as soon as we see the alcohol presented to us, we will say no, because we will think of this narration and we will say, if I take this alcohol, maybe I enjoy myself for a little bit of time, but at that moment, if I take the alcohol, the thing would come to your mind would be, angels are going to curse me, prophet is going to curse me, the believers are going to curse me. Why would I want to do that to myself? I just refrain from this because I know about it. So knowledge prevents a person from falling into sin. But if we don't study and we waste our time, then we could fall for many different things. The narration continues, it says, when he drinks enough to make, that's if he just took a mouthful. It goes further, said, when he drinks enough to make him intoxicated, the spirit of belief, iman, it leaves his body. It is replaced by the dirty, accursed, devilish spirit. When the person neglects salat and he spreads corruption in society. So if the person is intoxicated, in that he is in the state of kufr until he returns and does tawbah and returns back to the path of Islam. Imam Sadiq said, the one who drinks wine considering it halal, will remain in the hellfire forever. One who drinks wine knowing that it is haram will still taste the punishment of hellfire. So alcohol is haram. And if one does it, they believe that it is halal, then they have rejected a fundamental principle in Islam, a fundamental thing. And when they reject a fundamental thing, this puts them outside of Islam. So if a person says, drinking is okay, I don't believe it is haram. Well, Quran has said it is haram. Quran has named it as a sin. So when you say that it's not a sin, then that person who says that, they are in essence rejecting Quran, rejecting what Allah says, rejecting what Prophet says, and throwing all of that out the window to go off of what their lower desires believe. So when we do that, we leave the fold of Islam at that point. Same for any other essential thing. If we say that we don't believe salat is wajib, that all we need to do is say a dua before we go to sleep or when we wake up. And, this is good. We don't need to go through wudu and waiting for time and going through all these motions that, salat is not wajib. This would also put them outside of Islam. Or so any other of these other things. They say, I don't believe hijab is wajib. I don't believe, Hajj is wajib or zakat or any of these things. When they say that it is not wajib, that it is, it will put them outside of Islam. But however, on the other side of this, if a person knows that it is haram, but they, and they do it, but they believe that it's haram, but they are doing it, then they have sinned, but they haven't left Islam. For example, they know salat is wajib. They know that they should pray. They know Allah has said in Quran to make salat, but they don't do it. They neglect it. They are sinning, but they have not left Islam, but they are piling sins on themselves. A person knows that wine is haram, but they say, I'm just living my life. I know it's haram and I shouldn't do it, but I'm out here and I'm living my life and doing whatever I want to do. They are sinning, but they haven't left Islam because they haven't turned haram into halal or halal into haram. They haven't done these type of things. They just say, I recognize it's haram, but who cares? I do it anyway. So that's the difference between these two things. He says, Imam Rida alayhi salam has informed that or said that Allah knows better that every prophet who has been sent by him did not have his religion completed till wine was prohibited. Wine has always been haram. So this refutes those false allegations of the Bible that say that some of the prophets drank wine, na'udhu billah. And they have said some prophets turned water to wine, other ones that they drank wine and did horrible actions with their daughters, na'udhu billah. This is all false allegations. And what I noticed a long time ago is that they're always saying that Isa alayhi salam was ma'soom, infallible. But we believe all anbiya are infallible, they're ma'soomin. But for Bible, they have concocted a sin for every prophet except Isa. So in my opinion that I have formulated from looking at this, what it is that all of them are ma'soom, but in order to make one look special and look better than the other ones, they put a stain on every other prophet in order to make all of these lesser and make one greater than them. So, but in reality, all the messengers are ma'soom, they're infallible, because Allah would not send us someone to follow, command us to follow them unconditionally, and that person is committing sins and disobeying Allah. He would not be the example for us, because if we followed him in that sin, then Allah judges us for that sin. How can Allah judge us for following someone he commanded us to obey unconditionally? It
I have a
goes
question on
against
that.
justice. Yeah. Okay.
Is that a Christian doctrine then? That putting other prophets down and raising Prophet Jesus alayhi salam?
No, this is just what I've noticed, because in the Bible, there's a sin for every prophet. They have a sin for them. They have said bad things about every single prophet. They have made some sort of sin. So
So,
my
but but the Jews don't. I mean, the Jews are the ones who proposed the, about Solomon and David and other
yeah,
people. But
all of that is in Bible. Yeah, so the same
yeah,
thing with Jewish,
but
not
they
just
don't even
Christian.
believe in Jesus though. So why would they
Yeah.
even not oppose that view on Jesus? That's my question.
I'm not sure. I have
Okay.
no idea. Yeah, but they have put maybe they are doing with Musa what they did with Asa. I don't know. I don't have any much information about the Jewish, because I was around mostly the Christians.
Yeah.
But all of
Okay.
these are allegations are false, and some of them were refuted in Quran, that they came and refuted these bad ideas about the prophets. Yeah. He says in the present Old and New Testaments, even after so many interpolations and alterations, there is considerable criticism of alcoholism. So even in the Bible, they criticize alcohol in some verses. So the author, he brings a few verses, but people are not paying attention with these verses, and they're doing whatever they want to do. Maybe some groups of Christians or Jews, maybe they're not drinking, but most of the Christians are drinking. He brings Proverbs 23:30. Don't associate with people who drink too much wine. Also, it says Proverbs 23:29 through 33. Show me someone who drinks too much, who has to try out some new drink, and I will show you someone miserable and sorry for himself, always causing trouble and always complaining. His eyes are bloodshot, and he has bruises that could have been avoided. Do not let wine tempt you. Even though it is rich red, though it sparkles in the cup and it goes down smoothly, the next morning you will feel as if you had bitten by a poisonous snake. Weird sights will appear before your eyes, and you will not be able to think or speak clearly. Also, Proverbs 21, there's a punishment for drinking wine mentioned. He says, inform the elders of the town, this son of ours is a rebel and a sinner. He does not obey us. He is a glutton and drinks too much wine. Then all the people of the town will stone him until he dies. So this is in Bible, but obviously, there's no one stoning anyone for drinking alcohol. And the alcohol is, you know, like I said, society shapes the view of people. They're not basing their view on their book. They're basing the view on what people are doing around them. And we can see in the prohibition in America, at one time they prohibited drinking alcohol, and there was heavy fines for those who drank alcohol. And there was even law, then it got accepted. They couldn't control it, so they allowed it and they taxed it. And then people were drinking, but they couldn't drink on Sunday. I remember when I was growing up, they had the blue laws, they called them, and no one could sell alcohol on Sunday. So then over time, then that went away. And then people do alcohol whenever they want to, and no one says anything about it. But in this time, in this chapter of Bible, they say that everyone should come together and stone that person. But if you show someone this verse that believes in the Bible, they're going to say, oh, no, we don't believe in this anymore, because there are no laws on us, that all the laws were done away with. So they have religion with aqaid, with beliefs, but no ahkam, no laws. Another verse, Ephesians 5, verse 18. Do not get drunk with wine, which will only ruin you. So we see even in older books prior to Quran, the Bible, they prohibited drinking and they discouraged drinking. I don't know if we can say totally prohibited it, but we can see that it is definitely discouraged to drink. Then he mentions narration from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam that says, alcoholism is the mother of all sins. Drinking alcohol invites the one who drinks it to all sorts of indecencies. It destroys his intellect, so much so that under its influence, he even fails to recognize his Lord. Whatever sin he encounters, he commits it. The alcoholics do not refrain from any such acts which are against morality. All of morality is gone out the window when they are drinking. They will do all sort of haram things. He says, thus drinking liquor or alcohol is haram, not merely in the light of Quran and traditions, but it is a greater sin. One of the necessities of religion is to consider alcohol haram. And if a Muslim considers it to be halal, he becomes kafir. This is what I was explaining earlier, that it's clearly mentioned to be a greater sin. A greater sin. So if someone rejects that idea, or that statement in Quran, they become disbeliever. He says it makes no difference if the quantity consumed is less or more. Alcohol is in totality, all of it is haram, whether it is pure or it is mixed, meaning that it is straight alcohol or they mix it with some other sort of soda or juice or something else. He said, thus, even if a person licks a single drop, it is haram, whether he gets intoxicated or not. In the same way, if alcohol is consumed by mixing with other things, it's still haram. Al-Mahilli brings a narration from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam that he said, if more of it intoxicates, then to consume even a small amount of it, it is haram. So if you consume it in a greater quantity, it will make you intoxicated. Then that means that any amount of this thing is haram to consume it. He said a person asked from the Imam, but I dilute it with water. I cut it, I make it, water it down. So Imam told him, a haram thing does not become halal by mixing it with water. Fear Allah and refrain from partaking in it. So he said, maybe it's not so bad. I just put a little bit of it and I mix it with water, but that doesn't make it halal to do that. It's still haram, no matter if they put a small amount of it. One of the companions asked Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, he says, does it matter if as much water is mixed in wine so that it is no more intoxicating? Imam said, no, by Allah, it is not. Even if a drop of wine falls into a well full of water, it does not become halal. Rather, the whole well should be emptied. So we see that even it's because alcohol is najis. So if you drop najasat into something else, it is making that thing najis. So it doesn't matter if you mix it with water or not. We cannot consume that thing. Also from Imam Sadiq, he says that every intoxicant is haram. Something that intoxicates only when consumed in large quantities is also not allowed to be taken even in a lesser quantity. So the narrator says, I asked, then if a haram thing is mixed in a huge quantity of water, does it become permissible? The Imam said he flailed his arms twice, indicating emphatically that it does not. So because these people are saying, I want to take the alcohol, just let me mix it with something else. Maybe I put the shot glass of some alcohol into my water. I mean, why would someone want to do this when it is haram? They just say, I just take a little bit of haram and mix it with halal and then it will be okay, but it's not the case. So Imam wants us to stay away from this thing totally. The author says, alcohol is harmful irrespective of the quantity consumed. Even if a drop of the poison enters the body, it has harmful effects on it, whether it is apparent immediately or not. If you mix a few buckets of red dye in a pond of water, the whole pond turns red. But on the other hand, if you throw a glass full of ink in a pond of clear water, it would not bring any change in its appearance. Yet you could say that the ink has not affected the water at all. He's asking this question. He said, certainly not. If the water was subjected to, distillation, then the glass full of ink could be recovered out of that. So he says if it enters the body, it will cause harm. A person, because even if it's diluted, they can still extract it out of that. So even if it is in our body, it is still there. Even if it is mixed with more things, it is still there. He says, and it will have some effect. He says a person who tastes alcohol one drop at a time, soon they get addicted to this drink and they need to drink more and more of it. Like the first time, maybe they are drinking one glass and it has effect on them. And then they like it and they drink another glass. The next time they have two glasses to get the same effect as the first time. Then later they build the tolerance where some people can even drink a 12 or 24 pack of beer and it takes them to get affected that many beers, as before they would only drink one or two. So they build up a tolerance to this thing and they want to keep drinking more and more and more of it, and it causes a lot of harm to their self. He says, consequently, a stage is reached when he is unable to rid himself of this habit, no matter how hard he tries. A stone, he says, a stone is eroded when water drips on it over a period of time. So even that, it shows that like something as hard as a stone, eventually you can erode this thing by just taking one drop, drip, 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 and it was something tiny as a drop, but eventually over time it will erode that thing and it will cause damage to that stone. So he says, similarly, alcohol erodes the liver and other cells of the body. Grapes, raisins, dates, when unfermented, have medical properties and are wholesome. They're beneficial for us. They give us good things from those if we take them in their right way. But as soon as the fermentation sets in, then these fruits that we mentioned, uh, wine is produced, then they turn harmful and prohibited. So they are good for us as long as we take them in their halal way. But as soon as they ferment, then that's when the problem comes. He says liquid intoxicants. If an intoxicant is a liquid in its natural state, in addition to its being haram, it is also najis. But if an intoxicating substance is solid in its natural form and it is available as a solution, like opium or hemp or for consumption, it is not najis, but its consumption is haram, like that of wine. So those that are uh, liquid in their natural state, like wine, um, for example, beer and these other liquors that they have, then these are haram and also najis. But some other type of intoxicant, we can say, for example, these other type of drugs, cocaine, heroin, marijuana, all of these things, they are intoxicants. So they are haram, but they are not najis. This is a fiqhi issue, because if someone spills wine on something, they need to clean that thing because the thing is haram, is najis. But if some other sort of drug touch something, or we touch some drug with our hand, for example, as a police officer, and he has to handle the evidence. And this drug, for example, they picked up a bag of drugs and the drugs dropped on their hand or on their clothes. What is the result of that? It's not najis, so they don't have to worry about washing that thing and this thing. So it's a fiqhi issue dealing with tahara. Then he talks about giving alcohol to children. They used to do this a long time ago in America. The older generation, they would say that they would put the parents didn't want to deal with the children whining and crying a lot, so they used to put bourbon or whiskey or something in their baby bottle, like a little bit of it to mellow them out. This different era and different type of parenting. I don't know. Or if the child would get toothache or they were teething, that they would give them alcohol. You know, this goes on in America, also some other countries, probably. Pretty sure. So he says, offering alcohol to others is haram, even if it is to a young, naive child. The book, in one of his books he mentions, contains 3 narrations regarding this topic. The gist of these narrations is that the one who is responsible for serving alcohol to young children will have to drink an equal quantity of boiling water and hellfire on the day of Qiyamah. So this is the punishment for this. And it is also haram to even to serve alcohol to non-Muslims. I remember, I don't know how it is now, but I remember a long time ago, they were telling me about one of the Muslim countries, and they were saying that if you had a passport from a Muslim country, you could not drink alcohol. But if you had a Western passport or a country that allowed drinking alcohol, that they would serve you alcohol, being from the Western country, but Muslims they would not serve. But it's haram to even serve alcohol to anyone, to non-Muslim, to Muslims, to children, to anybody. We should stay away from this thing totally. A lot of people get greedy and want to get money, so they try to find uh, their loophole in order to get it. So they are kuffar. They think drinking alcohol is okay, so I'll serve them alcohol, but I won't drink any alcohol. But it is still haram. Allah tells us not to do it, to stay away from alcohol and these things. He says if liquor or alcohol is served on a table, it is haram to sit there and eat, even if one does not touch the wine. So it is from narration from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam that he says that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, accursed is the one who sits at a table where wine is being served. And the Prophet also said, one who believes in Allah and the last day must not even sit at the table where wine is kept. Do not sit with those people who drink, because when the curse comes down on them, it engulfs all of the people around the company of those who drink. And we see that, you know, if we are in the midst of people, all of them are committing haram, what if the punishment comes on them and we are there? It's for like an example, if, you know, some tsunami comes, it doesn't discriminate. And, you know, if we are warned, we should leave and we say, oh, we're going to stay with these people. Or like some people who stayed in the Prophet's time, when the punishments were coming, and they said, oh no, I'm okay. Like the son of Nuh, for example, said, oh, I'm okay, I'll stay here, and you know, I'll be all right, I'll go on top of this mountain. But the punishment comes, it gets everyone. We have to you know, when we see those things, we should try to stay away from those as best we can. Some scholars have stated it is not permitted to be in the company of people where anything haram is being done. For example, backbiting about a Muslim. He says it's wajib on a person to leave immediately, if possible, and be free of the sin of just being in the company of that person while they're doing it. Also, if by leaving the others will discontinue their sinful action, then it becomes wajib on him to do so. So, for example, he says someone is backbiting someone else. We should leave. And if us leaving them would make them stop, then it's wajib on us to get up to leave, because then it will make them feel ashamed and they will stop doing that action. Or if we go and we meet a Muslim person and they are say, oh, I'm going to have a beer tonight, you know, and you say, oh, astaghfirullah, I'm not going to sit here while you drink alcohol, I'm going to leave. And they feel ashamed and they say, oh, you know, I shouldn't do it, and forgive me, and I won't drink, and we can just sit and have our meal. then it would be wajib on us to do that, because it's amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar, enjoining good and forbidding wrong. So these type of things, like I said, if society shunned these actions like in this way, and then the person will feel ashamed to do them publicly, because they said, what are people going to say? They're going to, shun me. I shouldn't do these things, and society looks down on them. The problem comes later, now that we have most of society is agreeing with these things, and even can get to the point sometimes, if you don't do these things, they think you are the strange one and you are the weird one, and they make fun of you, because they say, oh, all of these people, for example, in university, all of the university students, they'll say, all of us are drinking and partying and doing these things, and you are the only one not. What's wrong with you? Why don't you want to do these things? Look at everybody else. They're all doing it. There's no problem. And, everything is good. And they put the pressure on them. So society sometimes has gotten to the place where not doing haram is looked at as a strange thing. May Allah help us in this. We have to stand firm. And the only way we will stand firm is knowing the consequences haram. We don't just see the haram action. My masjid or Sheikh or Sayyid or whoever of masjid told me not to do these things. When we see the action, we see the reality behind the action. We see it very clearly, and we see not just the action, but we see the consequence of the action in the akhirah. We see that Nabi Yusuf alayhi salam was called and was pressured to sleep and do zina. He saw the result of that action and clear proof from his Lord that he knows what the result of that action is and what the displeasure of Allah is. And he said, I would never do that, and he refrained from it. But most people, if they get called to do that, they'll say, oh, I was waiting for this. I've been waiting for this moment. And, finally my time has come, and they will go right away they'll be running to the room with that lady. But if we know the consequences, and we know what Allah has said and what Prophet has said, what Imams have said about all of these actions, I'm telling you, like it comes straight to your mind. As soon as you see it, you see haram being done, any of these type of sins, and when you know the narration come to your mind, ayat comes to your mind, and you see exactly what it is. This knowledge, these narrations allows us to see very clearly, where most people, their vision is clouded and they cannot see things for what they really are. But these narrations, if we learn them, we know them, it's like compared to lifting a veil off of our eyes to see what is the reality behind things in life. And when we know the reality behind things, it helps us make decisions very clearly. And it won't matter what anyone will say to us. We will be firm, because we'll say we know what's the deal with this sin when they bring it. And inshallah, we'll be able to tell other people. Maybe they don't think it's a big deal. You can say, brother or sister, this thing that you think is, very light, it says that when you drink this alcohol, maybe you think you'll have a good time, but at this moment you do this, then the angels and the prophets and the believers, they are sending curse on you. You get the displeasure of Allah and all these other things that we've learned. And maybe it will tell them to fear Allah, and maybe it will make them leave that sin. And at the end of the day, at least we have informed them or warned them and told them what we have discharged our duty and our responsibility of trying to refrain them from this type of sin. So we'll end here. We've run out of time, so we'll pick back up in the next week, inshallah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Jazakallah. And a break of 5 minutes, then we start, inshallah.
Okay. I'll be
Thank
back.
you. Jazakallah.